Most people think they know Cass Elliot, the sunny, magnetic voice behind some of the most famous folk rock hits of the 1960s. Yet, behind her cheerful stage presence lay hidden battles, fierce struggles with self-image, tension with bandmates, and a secret about her child's father that she guarded until her final days. She was the driving force of the Mamas and the Papas, but her life was punctuated by heartbreak, controversy, and a mystery that no one would solve until long after she was gone. This is the story of Cass Elliot, the talent who dazzled millions even as she fought personal wars behind the scenes. Cass did more than belt unforgettable melodies. She challenged the norms of an era obsessed with beauty standards, earning both admiration and brutal criticism. She paid a steep price for fame, including betrayal by those closest to her and a string of rumors that refused to die, even after her final curtain call. By the time the public learned the truth, it was far too late to change how she'd been treated. But how did a determined teenager from Baltimore transform into one of the 1960s most iconic voices? And what secrets did she carry with her until her final breath? The answers reveal a woman whose life was far more complicated and far more inspiring than anyone could have imagined. Born Ellen Naomi Cohn in Baltimore, Maryland in September 1941, Cass Elliot came from a family of Russian Jewish immigrants who never quite found financial stability. Even as a young child, her spark was impossible to ignore. She had a dramatic flair and a knack for making people laugh, sing along, and pay attention. Despite her family's money troubles, Cass dreamed big. In high school, she found her footing on the theater stage. She adored the rush of performing for an audience, yet beneath the showmanship lay a gnawing self-doubt. Her weight made her a target of constant teasing in a society that prized thin figures above all else. Over time, she developed a thick skin and a bright persona to counter every rude remark. Still, she knew she'd need an edge if she ever wanted to escape the narrow labels others put on her. That edge arrived when she took the stage name Cass Elliot, borrowing partly from comedian Peggy Cass. Reinventing herself felt like the first real step towards stardom. She dropped out of high school to chase a career in acting, moved to New York, and tried desperately to get her foot in the Broadway door. But rejection came swiftly. She famously lost one role to an unknown Barbra Streisand. Disappointed, yet undeterred, Cass switched gears to singing. Cass's foray into music began with two small-time groups, the Big Three and the Mugwumps. Neither made her a household name, but they did connect her with people who would shape her future, including Denny Doherty, the man who would forever loom large in her life. As Cass honed her craft, her powerful voice drew interest. But a harsh reality soon emerged when it came time to join the New Journeymen, a folk group that later transformed into the Mamas and the Papas. John Phillips, the group's frontman, insisted Cass's deep, soulful tone didn't fit the band's style. In truth, he was more concerned about her appearance. Cass was heavier than the typical starlet of the 1960s, and John was fixated on how image could affect public perception. Michelle Phillips, John's wife, stood by him, at least at first, sharing private doubts about how the public would receive Cass. Denny Doherty, however, recognized she had something no one else could match. Despite the objections, Cass stuck around, following the group from city to city. She served them drinks at rehearsals, hoping they'd let her sing in more than just a practice session. It was humiliating. But luck swung in her favor when the New Journeymen hit financial trouble, burning through their budget on late-night escapades. Homeless and out of options, they showed up at Cass's door in Los Angeles. That night, she offered them a deal. They could crash with her, but only if she got a spot in the band. John had no choice but to concede. The newly christened group, the Mamas and the Papas, took shape with Cass Elliot, John Phillips, Michelle Phillips, and Denny Doherty. Under that iconic name, they produced hits like California Dreamin' and Monday Monday, vaulting them to the top of the charts. It was an extraordinary time for music, but behind those feel-good harmonies, Cass faced a private storm. From the moment she'd first met Denny Doherty, Cass had fallen hard. Everything about him, the charm, the voice, the sense of adventure, drew her in. Yet Denny saw her only as a friend and musical partner. To make matters worse, he secretly became involved with Michelle Phillips, who seemed to have the ease and glamour Cass yearned for. When Denny revealed the affair, Cass felt both betrayed and ashamed. In her eyes, Michelle could have had any man on the planet. Why did she need the one Cass loved? Her heartbreak festered. Bandmates who once teased her gently now escalated the weight jokes, even writing them into their songs. One infamous line from Cass Elliot goes, "No one's getting fat except Mama Cass." It stuck, branding her with a nickname she hated. She tried to drown her pain in substances, pushing herself to perform anyway. In public, she was the jovial Mama Cass. In private, she wrestled with bitterness, jealousy, and the crushing realization that she might never be seen as more than the big girl with the big voice. In 1967, Cass flew to London, planning to meet her bandmates for a high-profile gig. Instead, she found herself jailed overnight for allegedly pilfering linens from her rented apartment. Whispers suggested that law enforcement actually had their eye on a different target. Her rumored companion, Pick Dawson, who was not just a friend but possibly her supplier. Cass became a convenient scapegoat as authorities tried to pressure Dawson. Ultimately, a magistrate dropped the charges due to lack of evidence, but the scandal forced the mamas and the papas to scrap the show. Darker rumors clung to Cass's social circle back in California. Her parties were legendary, attracting free-spirited musicians and occasionally menacing figures like Charles Manson. Details remain hazy, but John Phillips later blamed Cass for allowing Manson into their circle at all. As far as the authorities were concerned, Cass was never implicated in Manson's crimes. But that didn't stop John from pointing fingers. Tension within the band soared, and Cass began to see fewer reasons to stick around. A bright spot emerged when Cass recorded "Dream a Little Dream of Me," which took off commercially. Feeling emboldened, she parted ways with the Mamas and the Papas, leaving behind the heartbreak, the barbed lyrics about her weight, and the relentless drama. The world was ready for Mama Cass to shine on her own, yet the next chapter nearly broke her for good. Not long after the band's breakup, Cass secured a lucrative deal at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. The contract promised a six-figure payout over several weeks, more than enough to establish Cass Elliot as a solo powerhouse. Yet the pressure to slim down crept back in stronger than ever. Terrified of public scrutiny, she embarked on a drastic crash diet, 4 days a week of fasting for 7 straight months. She shed an alarming amount of weight, but in doing so, drained herself of vital energy. By the time she arrived in Las Vegas, Cass was a wreck. She was diagnosed with tonsillitis, hemorrhaging vocal cords, mononucleosis, and hepatitis, all connected to her punishing diet. When opening night came, her voice was faint and her breath was short. The star-studded audience, celebrities like Sammy Davis Jr. and Jimi Hendrix, watched in disappointment as she stumbled through her first show. Hoping to redeem herself, she attempted a second performance the same night, but her vocal condition worsened. Caesar's Palace canceled her contract immediately, and the media wasted no time piling on. One magazine likened her debut fiasco to the sinking of the Titanic. Cass sank into depression, haunted by yet another public humiliation. Yet even in the lowest moments, one thing brought her solace: her daughter, Owen. Cass had secretly given birth not long before the Las Vegas catastrophe. Determined to shield Owen from tabloid frenzy, she refused to reveal the father's identity, fueling endless speculation. Behind the scenes, Cass threw herself into motherhood with the same devotion she'd once given her stage performances. She fired any nanny who got too close to Owen, determined to be the central figure in her child's life. Publicly, she kept quiet about Owen's paternity, leaving reporters scrambling. Meanwhile, she continued to hustle for new opportunities, dabbling in TV specials like the Mama Cass television program and Don't Call Me Mama Anymore. Even so, she still longed for a genuine relationship that wasn't tinged by show business agendas. As the early 1970s rolled on, Cass performed more frequently in Europe, hoping to revitalize her image. In 1974, she took the stage at the London Palladium, dazzling crowds for 2 weeks of concerts. Offstage, her life was as frenetic as ever. She'd recently collapsed backstage at The Tonight Show, prompting doctors to caution that her health was in jeopardy. Cass, always brushing off health warnings, insisted she was just exhausted, yet the pace only intensified. After wrapping up her Palladium show, she partied late into the night, even attending Mick Jagger's 31st birthday celebration. Friends noticed her coughing, runny nose, and difficulty breathing, but Cass insisted it was nothing more than fatigue. She dropped by another gathering hosted by American journalist Jack Martin, where she seemed subdued, unusual for the vivacious woman who often lit up every room. When her secretary knocked on her bedroom door the following day and got no response, alarm bells rang. He entered the room and found Cass lifeless on the bed at just 32 years old. Doctors concluded that she'd suffered heart failure, likely linked to the toll her extreme extreme diets and hectic schedule had taken on her body. Yet gossip spread rapidly, claiming she'd choked on a ham sandwich, a cruel jab at her lifelong battle with weight. 4 years later, the Who drummer Keith Moon would also die in the same room, also at 32. Cass's death still resonates as a stark reminder of how fame can devour a person's health. At the time, however, the world seemed too obsessed with scandal to recognize her true legacy. After Cass Elliot's untimely passing, her daughter Owen went to live with Cass's younger sister Leah. Yet, the public never stopped wondering who Owen's father was. Years later, the truth emerged from a source few expected: Michelle Phillips. She confirmed that Chuck Day, the talented session guitarist who contributed to hits like Monday, Monday and California Dreamin', was in fact Owen's father. The news only deepened the intrigue surrounding Cass's story, revealing yet another hidden layer of her life. In October 2022, Cass Elliot finally received a posthumous star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Family, friends, and fans celebrated the honor, noting how the industry once overlooked her contribution, even as her extraordinary voice helped define an era. Her star represented a long overdue acknowledgement of a woman who tore down barriers. She battled fat phobia in a time when it was mercilessly normal, and she carved out a solo career that, while tumultuous, still proved her standalone talent. When the Mamas and the Papas were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1998, her absence loomed large. It reportedly took 3 vocalists to fill in for her part, a reminder that Cass's voice was singular, impossible to replace. Even though her journey was marked by heartbreak, secret struggles, and relentless rumors, it also radiated a raw brilliance. Today, her story stands as both a cautionary tale and a tribute to the strength it takes to defy expectations. Cass Elliot wasn't just Mama Cass, she was a trailblazer whose voice transcended every label thrust upon her. Perhaps the greatest lesson lies in recognizing that the same society that once mocked her now praises her. Let it serve as a reminder: true talent isn't measured by the size of your body, but by the spirit you pour into the world. Thank you for joining us in uncovering this remarkable woman's life and legacy. If you enjoyed learning about Cass Elliot's triumphs and tragedies, consider exploring more untold stories behind iconic musicians who defined entire generations. Her melody may have ended too soon, but her influence remains, resonating through every note of the Mamas and the Papas and beyond.